Well, hello. It's me again, Aunt T. I'm so glad to be talking and chatting with you today. I'd like to tell a couple of stories. You know how much I like to talk and tell stories. Well, let's have a little sip and we'll get started. I want to talk a little bit about my grandfather. My grandfather. He was he was more than a grandfather to me. He was like, well, he was more like my father in a lot of ways because my own father's was a very busy man. Well, we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, Grandpa. Grandpa always had stories too, and that's maybe why I want to tell stories. But I loved his stories. And his story that I want to share with you today is really about perception. And I want to talk about perception and how some things that we perceive, how we can make something better for ourselves by changing the perception of the way people are maybe viewing something in a certain way, changing their mind about something. So anyway, this story, my grandfather, many, many years ago, those were the days he worked in the as a salesman, a door-to-door salesman. And you might be thinking, how could anyone make a living as a door-to-door salesman? Well, today would be just about impossible. But in the time of the 50s, 60s, 70s, that was quite normal. Nobody had Amazon. Nobody had, a lot of women still stayed at home. They were at home. They were homemakers. They were, you know, uh, spend a lot of time with their, looking after the home. And so everything came to them. The milkman came, the milkman quite often would have eggs and butter and other things, and then also the mailman, the milkman, the bread man, and then you would have your what my grandfather was, which was the fuller brush man. So, and the fuller brush man usually sold all kinds of gadgets and things for the home, kitchen gadgets, and maybe also some kind of spices and home remedies. And he also went from fuller brush into Watkins as well. Anyway, so this particular story, my grandfather also he was really gung ho about achieving. He was a real achiever and always looked for ways to be the best at or to win the prize or whatever it was. So they quite often would have these incentives for the salesman, and they'd say, we have a particular product, and if you sell X amount of this, you'll win whatever it is prize, and you'll be top salesman. And so whatever it was either a bonus or a trip or something that they would get. So anyway, this one particular story, it's about how Grandpa said that the bosses got together in a meeting with all the salesmen, and they said, well, we had an error in the manufacturing of this particular broom, and we realized it would be a tough sell for everyone. But what happened is it ended up the broomstick got bent, and there's a slight bend to this broom, but it's still functionable. But we realize it'll be a tough sell. So if anyone can sell these, whoever sells the most of these brooms will win whatever it was. I don't know what the prize was. I can't remember what that was. But anyway, so all the other salesmen are looking at this. Well, who wants a bent broom? I can't sell a bent broom. Well, they're all grumbling, and they're like, why bother? So my grandfather looked at it and went, are you wanting these brooms? Do you want these brooms? He asked them all. They said, no, we don't want it. And Grandpa said, well, I'll take them all. And I don't know how many were there, but anyway, he took all the brooms that they had, and all the other guys are going, "Oh, what's up? You know, what's he doing?" And so anyway, there's my grandpa with all these bent brooms, and he went, did his route, his usual route. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Smith, you know, and how are you? I've got your, you know, whatever it is that she ordered, and blah blah blah." And she'd say, "So, do you have anything new to show me?" And he, "Oh, well, it's nice you ask." And he goes, "We have this special broom. It's a left-handed broom. It's bent specifically so that you can get into those corners if you're left-handed, or if you have a difficult corner that you want to get into, this broom will handle it for you." So he shows the broom to her, and she looks at it and she goes, "Oh, well, that would really be quite handy. I think I like that." So nevertheless, my grandfather sold every single broom, and he won the prize, of course. I don't, whatever it was. And got top salesman, which is so my grandpa. And if you know anything like his story, he was the ultimate alchemist, I say, or the alchemist, or the person that could transform anything bad into something good, who always found a way. And he always looked at life as, how can I find a way to solve this? How can we work with this? He never looked at it as, well, this is impossible, I give up. He would always look at, how can we make the best? And when you know the story, he came from quite a tough story. You know, my great grandfather, um, he uh, came across on a Navy ship. He was Welsh, came across on a Navy ship. He was the cook on the Navy ship. And he decided, just when they came to Canada, he sort of took off. Yeah. And he wanted to make a life in Canada. And so he took off, ran away from the Navy, found himself a wife, which was my great grandma, and the two of them ended up starting a farm, starting a life together, having children together. And then along comes World War I. And the Navy found my great grandpa. And at the time, my grandpa was very young, but he was the second oldest of the family on this farm. There were five of them, five children, and and they caught him, and they said, "Look, you're either going to go into jail for going AWOL, or you can enlist now and go back to fighting in the war." And so he had to leave his family, leave the farm, leave everything, and go fight in World War I. And um, he was a little bit older than all the other soldiers there, but he had to fulfill his duty. And so he came back from the war, and he ended up with TB, which is tuberculosis, which attacks the lungs, and he died shortly after. And my grandfather um, ended up taking on the job of, well, while his dad was away, my great grandfather was away at the war. He was taking on the job already of working on the farm, and then he died. And then it was shortly after his mother, my great grandmother, who was a midwife and a healer, and who I kind of think I am taking after her in some respects, even though I've never met her. I feel a connection. But she also died shortly after my grandfather's father died. So both his parents were gone, and his oldest sister was already married. She got married young and already had a child. So everything got left to my grandfather to run this farm, look after his siblings, and everything. So you talk about a man who could, transform bad into good. He's the guy. So he always had an eye. He always had an eye on how can I make this work? Let's not look at it as it's impossible. Let's look at it as it's possible. What do we do? How do we change the perception? How do we make the perception work? And I can kind of think I've taken after Grandpa in some ways, because I think in my own life I've had many different trials and different things happen to me. And rather than just give up, I always go, okay, Tracy, you can do this. You can do this. There's a way. Figure it out. There's some way you can do this. And I usually find something, some way, some way to change the perception, change the story, change it around to my benefit. And so I'd like to tell a story about myself here now. Many years ago, I worked as a denturist, and for those that don't know what a denturist is, it's a person that actually makes dentures for a living, right from the impressions to the actual placing of the teeth in wax, and then also making it into a plastic, um, um, the gum part into the plastic, uh, and all formed by different techniques. And they were anyway. I did all that, and it was very tough for me taking my exam in that. And I worked as an apprentice. Those were the days when when it wasn't so much the academic part, it was more the actual doing the work part that mattered. I'm not trying to make this seem like I don't, that I'm against the way it's done now. It's just that apprenticeships were done a lot different when I was doing it. And this was in about in the 80s, and um, the late 80s, around that time period. And then it changed over to the focus was all on the scholastic part. And then the actual work part came to be like secondary, which, anyway, just a little different take on it. I was, we used to go three months of a year for over 4 years. That I think was 4 years or 2 years, or I can't remember how many years it was. And you would go for your actual academic training, and I would go to Vancouver for that for a couple of months every year. And then I had to do my testing. Well, the testing for where you actually make a set of dentures for someone, and that person was volunteering their time, and in the attitude was that should I pass the test, they get to keep the dentures, so they would get a free set of dentures, in other words. So anyway, it took me a long time. I had a tough time. It took me a third try to finally pass my test, uh, um, making an actual set of teeth. The first time I did it, I I realized what I did wrong when I did the testing. But I also noticed something, that the examiners were all other people that were already in the trade, which was really quite unfair at the time. They were other denturists, and they shouldn't have been examiners, because, of course, they're not wanting you to, they're they're not wanting this extra competition, right? So there was a little bit of, unfairness there. But anyway, I noticed whenever they did the testing to see if, you were passing certain parameters, to which you had to have so much freeway space, and there had to be centric relation, freeway space, all these different things that they would check for. And um, centric relation is the relation of the mandible to the maxilla when the mandible is in the most posterior position of the glenoid fossa. So, in other words, when you're closing your mouth together, is it straight? Is it in the right? Is it centric? And then there was freeway space, which was very important because that's the space when your jaws are relaxed. And so they would do this test with all the people that were, wanting to get these teeth. And the test was always they would get them to say different words that would show how much freeway they would have. So like words like Mississippi or um, church or different things to see where you phonetically how much room you have when you're speaking and you're talking and you're with your teeth. And if it looked like you were hitting the teeth or if it looked like you didn't have enough room there, then that was a fail, of course. You should never be having that difficulty with the dentures. They shouldn't be that freeway for speaking and chewing and everything else, right? It should be that little bit of relaxed space. And so anyway, my first one was this particular uh, client I had. She really had her natural bite was very, very little freeway. And she was very close naturally, like her teeth came together naturally, her jaw, the way she didn't have a lot of room. So of course they were getting her to say Mississippi, Mississippi, Mississippi. Poor thing. And every which way, and she could just wear the person out. And of course, and she was so upset because she loved the teeth that I made for her. And she didn't get to keep the teeth, and that was that. And I didn't get to pass my test. The second time, almost the same thing. And so the third time I went, okay, I'm picking somebody because you get to pick your client, somewhat, like they would sort of pick people out for you that for the test. And I picked this particular guy that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted this guy because he had a gagging problem. He would gag and gag and gag. As soon as anybody even got near him, he started to gag. And and but he did have lots and lots of freeway space that I thought, great, this guy's got lots of room there. They won't be able to do anything with trying to trip me up or trip up the poor client on this one. So anyway, I went, okay, I want him, you know. And it just so happened he was quite a big guy. He was like huge man. I didn't have to put up the chair height at all for doing my work with him. So anyway, I get to take the impressions because you have to do you have to put a tray full of this alginate material, which is a goopy kind of material that they make forms from. And so I needed to get a duplication of the inside of his mouth, of course, to make and develop and construct the teeth for him. So as soon as I would get out to him with this tray, he would already be gagging. And I couldn't even get it in his mouth, and the material was hardening on me. And so I said to him, I said, okay, so what is it? What is it that's bothering you? What is it? What can I do to help you? Because I have to get this in the right position in your mouth. And I have to be able to position it so that it's, centered and I'm getting all of the form of the inside of your mouth. And I said, so if I got it in there and then I move my hand, because he said, I can't handle your hands in my mouth. That's the problem. I can't handle the fact that you have hands in my mouth. And I'm like, okay. All right, so we know now what it is. So I said, well, look it, I will just get it in as quickly as I can in position. And then you have to put your thumb in the center of the tray and hold it up there. Could you do that? And he goes, yeah, I could do that. So I very quickly get it in the position in his mouth, move away. And I said, now put your thumb up there. So he did. And then it became solid, took it out. Thankfully got a good impression. And did the lower one the same way. And anyway, went on, happily made the teeth for him, which it takes like about 4 or 5, takes about 5, 5 actual sessions to make and construct. And in between each session, you're doing different stages. Anyway, it's quite a long process. And so anyway, I got the teeth made for him. And by this time, him and I are, you know, getting quite a rapport. And I said, look, I have a lot of trouble with passing the exam. And I said, whatever you do, I want you to be as difficult as you have been for me with these instructors. I said, as soon as they get near you, I want you to gag and gag and gag, just like you've been with me. Gag and gag and gag as much as possible. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah. I said, do what you've been doing for me, but do it worse, So anyway, comes time for the testing. And instructors, of course, are doing their same thing, Mississippi and all this open, close, open, close, open, close. And he's gagging and he's gagging. And they're like, okay, I don't know how Tracy made these teeth for this guy. How in the world did she do this? Let's just pass it. Like obviously it was very difficult. So anyway, I finally passed my test, and finally, and this fellow finally got to keep these teeth absolutely free, which he deserved every bit of it. And so the perception there was that this was very difficult, which it really was very difficult. That it was really, really difficult, but we kind of added on a little drama, a little extra to hasten the job of getting me to pass the exam. And I was ever so happy. Was a wonderful victory for me, big success. And finally, I passed my test. Finally, I was able to be a denturist. And for a while I did. I worked in that profession for a while, but then I wanted to change. Things didn't work out the way I thought. But yeah, so I just wanted to illustrate that sometimes you can make things, perception be to your benefit. Sometimes you can change the perception of something or alter your circumstances, even though on the surface it may look impossible. It may look like, how in the world? You can look at it as, this is an opportunity. This is a challenge. I want to take it. I'm going to change it and make it into something working for you. Change the perception of everyone else and make it to your benefit. And I did that. And I think I like to give credit to Grandpa for that. He kind of set me up that way in my life. I've done that many times where I take something that, like they say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I've sort of done that a lot in my life. And it helps. It helps. Change your own perception. And you change the perception of others. So I just thought I'd tell a couple of stories about that today. Hope you're having a great day out there. Thank you for joining me. We'll see ya. I'm having coffee today. But have a cup of tea too, or whatever you want to drink. It doesn't matter. Okay. Ta-da. Oh. Hi there. Or I should say bye. You caught me. Yeah, I'm drinking coffee. Yeah. I also drink coffee. Yeah. And it turns out I like coffee as much as I like tea. But anyway, it's the end of the video. And I wonder if you could do me a favor. All you have to do is click like. And maybe if you really like what I'm saying and you want to share it, maybe click subscribe. And then that way it helps me pay for the young lad that's helping me edit these, because I don't know how to edit very well. Like, you probably noticed that. And I need a little bit of help. And that fellow is a very nice young man. Andrew is his name, and his business is Permanent Records. And I'd like to give him a little plug to help him out. And so if you help me, I help Andrew. And that's how it goes. We just help each other out. But the long and the short of it is, I'm only ever going to get there if you click like and subscribe, because that's the only way that YouTube will actually notice me. And then they will put me in an algorithm. Then that supposedly helps me to actually make some money. And then I pay Andrew. And everybody's happy. Anyway, thank you for listening. And are you my badass bestie? And you drink coffee too? Okay, talk to you later. Bye.